Welcome to CRE Chat, hosted by Resolution Real Estate, which is a fully integrated, full-service real estate firm specializing here in New York City, the 5 boroughs. I'm joined by my partner, Anthony McElroy, managing partner, and I'm Jerry Nacera, the second managing partner. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Matt Kiamie, who's not only a friend, but he's also a client. And we have a bunch of things we have to talk about. We're lucky to be sitting in an absolutely gorgeous piece of space here on West 26th Street that Matt actually has already leased, if I'm not mistaken. So we're pre-occupying. We won't tell anyone without the proper insurance. But there's a bunch of things we want to talk about today about the B markets here in Manhattan. You and I share, and Anthony, the three of us share that this is really our product class. We specialize in renovating these older buildings, bringing them up to speed, and trying to attract not only the highest rents, but it's not always about the highest rent. It's about the best tenants and your best credit, and trying to create an environment in these buildings that, for everybody here, leads to renewals, which is the name of the game. So, Matt, you have about 10 buildings. Your company started way back when in 1944. You have about 1 million square feet now, right? Across your portfolio. Why don't you just tell us how you structure, how do you run your business?
First and foremost, it has to be an atmosphere where my employees come into the office and they come into work and they enjoy and they participate and they contribute and they're able to be there for us day in and day out. And they're happy when they come into work because when they're proud of what they do, then we get good results from them and they feel good about that too. And that helps when it comes to the tenant retention, like you were mentioning, Jerry, because they develop relationships with the tenants. The employees are the first people in line, directly communicating with tenants in the building and with vendors and contractors that come in. So that's really my motto on how I operate, is to have a feel-good environment, to get everybody to participate as a team. Because, as a landlord, I say, happy landlord, a happy tenant, happy landlord.
And
so it's all about customer service, keeping the tenants happy.
And getting, as we were talking earlier, good staff around you. Communications are very important. And when you rent to the affordable rent class, as we both do, flexibility is also very important. In fact, we were just discussing the way this space is laid out, a decision to either divide it or not divide it, but the smart decision after the decision of leaving it open was to keep a dual means of egress. So in the days that come, if there's a turn in the environment, tenant comes to you and says, I need a rent reduction or less space, you can keep them within your portfolio, probably within the building.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's very important.
We have to have that flexibility in our portfolio so that we can pivot as the tenants grow or they need a reduction in space. We've had tenants grow from 1,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. Amazing. We've also had tenants reduce their footprint in our buildings as well. So, we're here to accommodate that. Once we get them in, we want to keep them and retain them.
So I was going to ask you about agents, because you hire different agents from different firms, and you're smart. You spread your wealth around the different groups. What makes a good agent for you, Matt?
A good agent for us is one with resources, one with experience, one that is responsive and quick, one that's out there being active. It has a good roster of tenants. From a landlord agent rep, we want them to bring us tenants, obviously. So activity, generating activity in the space, having creative marketing materials, being creative, participating in events, having a broker event at a space, whether it's a breakfast or something of that nature. And, in general, being able to close deals, because that's hard today. It's difficult, especially today. Deals seem to get more complicated and they take longer. So having a broker that really has a good handle on the negotiations and how to properly communicate those negotiations with the opposing team can really help pull a deal together quicker.
Right. I agree. And communications with the owner and getting inside the owner's head as to what the real goal is, whatever that particular assignment is. Anthony, you've been involved in lots of leasing throughout your career. What is your definition of a good agent?
I would agree with Matt for the most part. I think, being active in the market, having a lot of connections, I'll say, resources, and, just being broker friendly. Matt talks about his culture and the brokers that he uses and whatnot. Your portfolio is very representative across the board of Manhattan. Right? You have a nice portfolio here. Kind of, we know in Manhattan every block is different, right? And although you're somewhat concentrated, but every block is different in your portfolio. And you've maintained north of 90% occupancy, I believe, right? Currently, whereas the submarket is 20% vacancy right now. Even though you hear about velocity and whatnot. So I'll ask you. So what's the most important thing that you've done to maintain that, way above market occupancy?
Just being proactive. I can't sit idle. If there's a space on the market, we need to generate, leads. We need to generate activity on it and make the space attractive to prospective tenants. And how do you do that? You have a nice lobby in the building. You're healthy up the middle, the elevators. But coming into the space, the tenants are looking at so many possibilities today because there's a lot of vacancy in the market, and they have choices, and they have landlords that will offer many things to tenants in many different shapes and forms. So we need to be competitive and have an advantage. So that's to have attractive space, such as the space here.
Right, right.
So you bring up a great point. Tenants are coming from everywhere, and they have a ton of choices. They can look downtown, they can look at Midtown. When I was young in this business, the adage was, if a tenant were to move, they'd move within a 2-block radius. Do you find that still the same? I know I wrestle with, hey, you got to be competitive with everywhere, but if I'm a tenant at the end of the day, I'm still making the decision of where am I moving my employees to? Where's the transportation for that? And if I can get $5 off a rent to go all the way downtown, am I really going to do that? So I'm wondering, are you seeing when you bring new tenants into your portfolio, are they coming from the local neighborhoods or are they coming from far afield?
In general, if they're happy where they are, they like the neighborhood, they know the neighborhood, they're comfortable with the restaurants and access to the neighborhood communications there, I'd say they prefer to stay local if they can. But if there is just some unbelievable opportunity somewhere else, I think they'll talk to their team and their committees, and they'll figure out, will it work? And then they'll decide what's best for them as a company. I've had tenants come from Midtown, come from downtown, come from buildings that are being converted, that are just looking anywhere in the city for a great deal, or they want to find good products. So you have to have that combination, that blend of location and product.
Agreed. And going back to product and Anthony's question, to answer part of it that Matt was polite about, Matt knows the market very well. He also isn't afraid to spend money in order to keep the space relevant and the building relevant within his marketplace.
Well,
So
I
many
think
people
not to
don't
interrupt,
understand that yet.
right? But also a big advantage that Matt has in the market right now is stable ownership, right? I mean, you've owned these buildings for many years. A lot of the buildings, as we know, especially in the Class B market, have struggled, over-levered. Buildings coming back, a lot of buildings in receivership. We work on a few of those. It's a more difficult, action to lease that space, right? Because tenants are like, well, because they have choices, right? Or maybe I could get a better deal in this building, but the ownership is a little unstable. So I think that's probably a huge advantage you have that you don't even, inherently.
Well, we worked for that too. We had 5 properties, and then between 2012, when I met you guys at 16 West 36th Street, and 2019, we purchased 5 more. So, we sort of have a blend with that. But yes, I'm blessed to have family ownership and, stable group of ownership sponsors. So,
You still a buyer?
I'm right now where it's kind of wait and see still, but I do think the market is improving, and I do think if you have the guts to do it, it's a great time. It's great opportunities to purchase an office building now today, especially in Midtown South and downtown. And I do feel strongly about the Midtown South market, that it will rebound better than it even has today.
I find it always very frustrating when you look at these buildings, particularly in today's market right now, where you do see strengthening in the leasing market, not as crazy as you're seeing on Park Avenue, but certainly we're seeing more solid indicators for this area of town. And you have these buying opportunities. And if you talk to institutional people, they just are terrified. They don't see it. And I know you are a big believer in New York and a big believer in this product class. And if you are, this is the time to buy. As I sat with Holiday in the last cycle, CEO of SL Green, he said, buy everything. Buy everything when it was 500 a foot back in that cycle. And he was right, because it all turned into be 800 a foot, 900 a foot within that cycle. But it's hard. It's very difficult today, and it's difficult for the guys who work.
It's also part of me, I guess, in our company and our vision as family ownership. We don't want to get too big and over leverage ourselves. So we like to have everything manageable from that standpoint. And so I'm enjoying the process now of reinvesting into the buildings and really, building up our product and making it the best that it can be, so that we have that competitive advantage against some of these buildings that have a high vacancy, or they're in receivership, or they're in auction.
Or can't write leases because
Yeah.
they're underwriting.
Yeah, they can write leases for 2 years and that's it.
Correct. We're representing a couple of them right now. Yeah, they're difficult.
Right.
But they can write cheap. So it takes the guy out of the market for 2 years, and then they'll have a problem in 2 years probably from now. You are structured as a family business primarily, right? Could you just go into that a little bit? How many people are in your company? How did your family start in the business, if you don't mind talking about that a little bit? It's a very fascinating story.
It was my grandfather and his brothers. They started in 1944. Before that, they had a textile company and they imported silk from Lebanon. Kiamie is Lebanese. My grandfather's the youngest of 9. And they had a big textile business. And when that transitioned into real estate in mid-1940s, it started to flourish as a real estate company. And for a long time, it was my grandfather and his brother Gilbert. And then my father was a CPA, so he got involved in the 1980s with my Uncle Phil. And when I graduated college, I got involved in 1995.
And now you're CEO and president.
Now I'm CEO and president. Yeah. And thank you. But also, I have a great supporting cast with my cousin Phil. He's the vice president. And my cousin Glenn also works for the company.
How many people in the firm?
All total in the office is 10. 10 people in the office. So we're still relatively small.
Yeah, but that's kind of what you are, right?
That's what we are.
Right.
We're hands-on. We know all of our tenants, which I think, is a benefit, and that helps us because they can call the landlord or email the landlord directly. It's not through a third party. And we love having resolution at 16 West 36th Street. You guys do a fantastic job there because I don't have much experience with management companies, and you guys really set a high bar there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So talk to us about this space, because this is a pretty good indicator of how you approach your spaces in the marketplace. And you're, just so that everybody knows, Matt's very involved in construction. I've seen it myself, sledgehammer, taking walls down. He gets that involved. But why don't you walk us through what was this space like beforehand, and what were the decisions you made about creating this beautiful piece of space?
So this space was a jewelry manufacturing floor for many years. They had manufacturing in the back. They had offices in the front. When that business moved somewhere else, one of the not-for-profit companies here in the building, they did some renovations, but they really left the old bones here as they were. So it was an old, tired installation. And when that tenant moved out a couple of years ago, the first thing that I did was just take everything out of the floor. So strip it down, demolish everything from the floor to the walls. Because why? Because when you have a market like this, much less any market really, it's hard to find a new tenant to come in to an old, tired space. There's a lot of downtime involved, and a lot of tenants will just pass on it instantaneously when they see something shiny and new. And then you're going to spend the money anyway for a new tenant to come in, because there'll be landlord improvement work that needs to be performed to build new offices, new AC units. There's a lot of base building work that needed to be done. Everything had to be taken out and rebuilt. The bathrooms, the air conditioning units, the flooring, the lights, the ceiling, the fire alarm. So each floor has a package unit. This floor has 2, one on the south side and one on the north side of the floor. And then, it's one step at a time. It's like a process like anything else for me. I don't come in and typically I won't pre-build immediately. I'll sort of take it one phase at a time. So I'll do the demo, and then we'll start to do some base building work, upgrades that way, and then I'll come up with a plan. For this space here, it's on the market, and it was slow. The market was slow. So we were getting a lot of activity with smaller space in the building, and we were leasing out. We leased out a smaller space, so it was just natural progression to take this floor here and divide it into 10 units. And
What are the size units on this floor?
so this floor is 11,275 square feet, but we wanted to go above building standard. Um, and so that we created 10 units that varied in size from 800 square feet. This unit's about 2,400 square feet. Each one has a wet pantry in it. Each one has the chevron pattern vinyl floors, LED linear pendants, the spiral ductwork. Each one has its own sub-panel for electricity, so that we could be versatile and easily combine them or break them up if we needed to.
So let me back up for a minute. So when this came back to you, it was 11,000 square foot floor. You put it out in the market as a full floor.
We did.
And you demoed it right away.
We did.
But it was raw
Yes.
when you first started marketing it. And you were building plans, and were you marketing through renderings of how beautiful the office space is in 11,000 square feet?
Yes, so we had several pre-built plans prepared, options for prospective tenants, and we put them on easels. When they come in, they could see, they could visualize, okay, this is what it will look like, and then we would take them to another floor in the building and show them some of the finishes, and okay, and here's possibilities here. But it's hard, to get the tenant to think and visualize what it will look like when they're not physically seeing it and touching it and feeling it. At least I find that, so.
Couldn't agree with you more. And now that you've leased this unit, how many others do you have left on the floor?
So we have only 2 remaining to lease out of 10, and we never actually marketed this floor. This is all pre-market, and that's one of the interesting things is, especially in this area particularly. So we'd come up with a floor plan and the finishes. So then I had someone in my office, Samantha Sophia, and she helped me pick out finishes here. And so we picked out the floor tile, the wall tile, the bathroom finishes, the kitchen pantry, the light fixtures, and then we gave it to a designer and had him do renderings based on just a floor plan that I drew out by hand. I'm old school and I never took. And so he put together renderings for us, and we went through several reiterations of the renderings. And once we came down to the final versions, we printed them out, put them on easels, and then we started to build. And then we'd get a phone call or an email, hey, we're interested in space on the second floor. Okay, it's 1,500 square feet. You might like the space, but we have something else in the building that you might be more interested in. It's off the market. It's undergoing construction, and we'd be happy to show it to you. And here are some of the renderings. And lo and behold, they come and they go, oh, wow, this is nice. It's new. We like getting the first crack at it. We like the aura, the mystique of it being pre-market. And it generated a lot of interest. And then we would mention it word of mouth to brokers. So they would know about it. They'd keep it under their radar. And they would bring us clients here. And so it's nice to have that network. But I think it's really the fact that it wasn't marketed. Right. It wasn't on CoStar. It wasn't on BTS. It's not on LoopNet. It's an unknown jewel. Yeah.
But it was a decision. It was actually a big financial decision to divide the floor, because you have to create the quarter, then you have to decorate the quarter, you got to design the quarter, then you have to upgrade your bathrooms, you got to add the handicap bathroom. So these are not easy decisions as a landlord. So circling back, and let's assume whatever you wrote on this deal, you write on your last 1 or 2 pieces of space. Is your rent per square foot at the end of the day combined higher than you would have been making with a full floor tenant?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the objective. We went above building standard, but we also wanted to retain and call out some of the original architectural finishes in the building, like the exposed brick and the brass window frames, and the steel columns. So it combines that vintage element really with the modern installation. And we're attracting here, wellness tenants, designers, architects, showrooms on this particular floor. So that's a nice compliment to us too, that they like the product, because they're here.
Absolutely. So. Absolutely. So what are you going to do when your first renewal comes up and says, I want that upstairs?
We'll do bigger and better, because we have to just keep in better every time.
Absolutely. So let's go back to a little bit about outside of this space in itself. Although I have to ask you a question. There's a sign outside of your building, Princess
Princess Marion.
Marion
Yeah.
Windsor. Or,
Kiamie,
Windsor.
Princess Marion.
Kiamie,
Yeah.
that's right. Is there a story?
Absolutely, sure. Marion is my great-grandmother. So my grandfather's father, right? He's the one that was the first person to come here to the United States. And a little side story: one of my grandfather's older sisters, was on the Titanic.
Wow.
Yeah. So she was obviously a survivor. She came here to the United States. But yeah, my grandfather's mother is Princess Marion.
And the princess is a legitimate princess, or is it
Uh,
a nickname?
It's a nickname.
Okay. I married one. We will have our
She's a figurative princess for us.
So, how do you define a Class B building, Matt?
Well, our Class B buildings are vintage, but they're a celebrated vintage to me. And, typical Midtown South Side Street building, mid-block building.
Age have anything to do with it?
Yeah.
So we used to have this argument all the time, right? So it used to be when I started in business, a B building was 25 years or older. A building that was 25 years or older was a B.
Okay.
That means all of 6th Avenue now in Midtown are Bs, right? Which we know they're not.
Yeah.
Right? So it's about investments in the building.
Right. Age is a part of it.
Correct. Age is part of
Mhm.
it. It can't be just age anymore. But when you're looking at new
But you can
buildings,
change that B to a B plus, A minus, or an A, or even an A plus.
if you have the right initial bones,
Mhm.
low ceilings, not enough windows, that's going to keep it to a B or a
Mhm.
C, as the case may be. So when you look, do you look at Cs to bring to Bs if you're looking to buy?
I look at all different types,
Mhm.
whether it's value add or opportunities with the building and the location of the building.
Have you ever bought non-value add buildings?
Yeah.
Connecticut.
Connecticut was, and even Rye was 100% occupied when I bought it.
But your own, and I'm not blowing smoke up your dress, but your way of doing business in itself is a value add.
Yes.
Just having you guys in your firm
Absolutely.
associated with the building.
Absolutely.
So I know I look
We're
at
always
for our firm
reinvesting into the asset itself, looking to improve it, so that we always have that competitive edge.
And now you're in this very competitive market. And if I'm a new buyer in New York, I'm coming from France, East Jabib, what type of renovations would you make sure I was counseled to do if I'm buying an older building?
And older buildings can need a lot, if not almost everything. Depends. I mean, you have to have strong mechanicals. You got to have a comfortable building, the HVAC system. You have to have an attractive lobby. You have to have something that, it's people see the cover of the book. This is, and maybe you add some elements to it, like a story or a theme. Like the Marvel. That was a great theme. I thought. That was, something that really helps the building stand out from other buildings to attract tenants.
We used to name them for the advertising campaigns. I don't know without print ad anymore so much if that carries the weight, right, where you see it in front of your face all the time. But yeah, we would, 1466 Broadway, we actually changed the address to 4 Times Square and 3 Times Square in those days.
Rebrand it.
Rebrand it. But then you're into the branding world, and your company is into branding. You do a wonderful job with your website. You standardized all of your buildings' website, their individual website. It's very creative and very unified, and I'm a big believer in branding. If you're going to start to brand and you have enough square footage to do it, like for a guy like Anthony and I, who have our own buildings and then we represent other buildings like herding cats, to be able to actually brand it. We can brand Resolution, but you can't brand each website in the same way.
Right.
So, but you have enough square footage to be able to actually create a branding effort. Could you talk to us a little bit about how you did that with your websites and how else it spills into your portfolio?
Sure. Well, we started actually with those websites that we currently have during COVID. And we wanted to do something that was a little bit out front. So we wanted to get out there digitally because people weren't coming out and physically going to see space or into the office for that matter. So it was important for us to have a strong presence on the internet. And I was fortunate enough to be introduced to Glenn Pear from Addressio, a very creative company, very creative individual. And we talked about, how we would position Windsor Management and our properties on the internet, and how we would market them. And we, first of all, a strong digital presence, strong content. I did some videos there too, so that, if you were looking at our website from France, you could see the CEO of the company speaking a few words there on the website about the family business and about what we do and how we connect with tenants. But then also finding the submarkets, such as 115 West 45th Street. That's in Times Square. So we'll always gear that one towards, musicals or plays or the playbill, and make it look like something from a theater district, because that's where it is. So, and we enjoy doing that, and Glenn's done a great job with that.
Great. And it is. It's very, very successful. And I did go on your website. I go on your website fairly regularly, and I was very impressed. There's that section, learn more about, I think it was, and you click it, and it takes you to Matt's email. So it's to Matt, which is really wonderful. I think that's a great move and very reflective of how your whole firm does business. So we're a couple of days away from the election, and I put you in a spot here because we are running out of time. Are you concerned about the candidates in this election as far as the health of the B-class office space over the next 4 years?
I would be not telling the truth if I said, no, I'm not concerned. So there is some concern. I think there's some risk with any candidate that comes into office, though, for that matter. But there are some aggressive policies that are being suggested. And there could be ramifications economically with the city itself, which would then impact Class B property owners. My concern is with the safety and the people on the streets, the homeless situation, and the possibility of crime. Because when you have an office building and you want people to come into the office, or if you have a vacancy, you want to show the space, and you don't want to have to be walking past certain individuals in the streets, because then the prospective tenant turns and they go, we really don't think we can bring our employees into this office. It's not going to work.
And we saw that during COVID. Thank God we all survived COVID, both business and physically. But those walks in the 30s in those days, or in the 20s in those days, you barely could get a tenant to come to your building because the walk was so disastrous that it didn't. So I understand, and we're going to find out in a few days as to how this election goes.
But I'm confident that New York is resilient. We've been through many different cycles before, and
bad mayors before.
That's right.
Right. So, I think that the affordable rent business class is not going anywhere in New York. It still has a great employment pool, and I think that no matter what happens in a few days, we'll survive it. So what have we learned, Matt, here today? I've learned that you're one of the preeminent, in my opinion, B-class owners. Your
Thank you.
philosophy on approaching tenants, and we work a lot together because of 36th Street, and I see how you approach the tenants when they have a problem, and trying to understand what that problem is, rather than just saying, I'm not going to deal with it, your problem. You get into their head, you get into their business, and I respect you greatly for that. You also have a great staff around you, and you hired Resolution Real Estate, so you're very smart.
That's right.
So I love it. Anthony, you got anything you want to ask or conclude here?
No, just in closing, just to follow up on what Matt was saying, I think anytime there's change, it's a little scary. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and as a real estate owner, we've been in the business a long time too. It's hard, right? It's become a hard business. We're talking about maybe rents ticking up a little, velocity getting a little better. But, I look around, you spend a lot of money to build out this space.
Yeah. And you know what? These are office buildings, but it's not limited to office space.
Right.
We do have offices here for designers and architects, management companies, consultants, technology companies, but we also have, now we've expanded, and I think that's where you have to adjust and pivot a little bit, is to open your mind to, okay, we can bring in some alternate uses in here. There's a lot of demand for wellness now, for hair, for nails, for makeup, treatments, skincare. We even have a dance studio downstairs. You should be dancing. And 3 fantastic restaurants too. So tenants coming into the building know that they have options in the building. It's almost like a small community. You know, if you need something, it's here in the building.
I didn't know you had a dance studio.
We do.
And if I ever joined, they would change their name to be You Oughtn't Be Dancing. And on that happy note, I think we've concluded number 2. Thanks, Matt, for all your time.
Thank you,
and your
gentlemen. It's a
honesty.
pleasure.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you always.
Take care now.